Picture cards are such a versatile tool, but it's easy to fall into the trap of using them in the same old ways and just going through the motions. And it's not that those same old ways are bad, it's just that there's so many other ways you can use picture cards. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 activities that I was first introduced to when using picture cards. Then I'm going to share with you 3 other activities or ways you can use picture cards in a new and surprising way. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been a professional facilitator for 20 odd years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops and community conversations. Now I help other trainers and facilitators do it well too. When I first started facilitating 20 odd years ago, I was introduced to these picture cards and I was given 3 activities to use them in a way to draw out some conversation from the room. The first activity was about creating space for people to share what they wanted to get out of the workshop. So I would lay the picture cards out on the floor, invite people to gather around in a circle, and then ask them to choose a picture that represented what they wanted to get out of the workshop. Now, people can make the pictures mean all sorts of different things. It's just a lovely way to create story around their objectives. So that was the first activity. It's easy, it's quick, and it gets people talking. The second activity I was introduced to was mirroring that at the end of the day. So laying the picture cards on the floor, gathering a circle, and inviting people to choose a picture card to represent what they got out of the session. What is something that they learned or something that they are taking away with them? Again, quick, easy, and a great way to use the cards. The third activity you may have already used as well, and that is about providing context for the workshop. So lay the picture cards on the floor, get people in a circle, you're seeing a theme here, and then invite people to choose a picture to represent whatever the topic of the workshop might be. So choose a picture to represent what leadership looks like to you. Choose a picture to represent what great communication looks like to you. Whatever that might be. As people are sharing back the stories of their pictures, you can start to gather keywords and key themes so that you are introducing the topic of the workshop. Now, all of those activities are fine activities to use. They've been around for decades and they get trundled out at almost every workshop I've ever been a part of. But let me share with you 3 other ways to use picture cards that have a little more depth and a little more interest. Activity 1 is called How We Show Up. And I use this as a way to get people thinking about the behaviours, the attitudes, and the mindsets that they bring to the room. So some people might call this a group agreement, it might be behaviour expectations, but I simply start a conversation around how do we want to show up for each other. So how this activity works is like the previous activities. I lay the picture cards on the floor, I invite people to stand in a circle, and the invitation is to choose a picture that represents how you would like others in the room to show up in order for the workshop to be a success for you. So people choose all sorts of pictures and then tell the story of what's important to them. It might be that they choose a picture like this, feet standing at the beginning of the path. To one person that might represent space. I'd really love it if people can just stand back and give each other space to contribute. For other people, this picture might be focusing on the dirt and the fact that they'd like people to go to the tough space, the dirty stuff, the stuff that perhaps we don't surface often, but it really needs to be talked about. So people can make the pictures mean different things. It's in the story that goes with them that matters. Once everyone has had a chance to choose the picture and share the story that represents how they'd like others to behave in the space, I then invite them to put all of those pictures onto the flip chart or a wall so we can have a collective picture of how we need to show up for each other. That's step one of the process, but that's not the only thing we do. There's a second part to the process that I think is even more powerful. I invite people to come back to the picture card, stand again in a circle, and this time I invite them to choose a picture that represents how they need to show up for themselves in the workshop. Because how you show up for yourself is just as important as how you're showing up for others. When this happens, they choose a picture, they share the story of what that represents, and then I invite them to take that picture back with them to their seat, to their table, and blue tack it or stick it in place so that it's a visual reminder for everyone about how that person is committed to being in the workshop today. Activity 2 is a team collage, and I use this activity a lot when I'm working with teams around team culture and they're wanting to really identify the different strengths within the team. So I start by inviting participants to choose a picture that represents the unique strengths and talents that they bring to the team. And again, they can choose any picture and they can make it mean anything. To start with, I invite them to turn to a partner and share the story of that picture so they can really start to think and articulate what that means. Once they've had a chance to chat it through with a partner, I then bring that back and we share it all as a group. As people are popcorning their responses back into the group and they're sharing what that picture represents and the unique strengths and talents that they bring to the team, I then ask them to drop their picture onto the floor. And as we go around to the circle, we start to create a team collage, all of the pictures together representing what the team looks like as a whole. Once all of the team have shared, we then work through a series of questions as a bit of a debrief. I invite them to consider things like, what do you notice about all of the pictures laying here together? If you were to give this collective team collage a theme, what might the theme be? Are there any picture cards that seem like outliers, that don't look like the other picture cards that have been chosen? What might that mean, or what might that feel like for the person whose card that is? Is there anything missing in this collage that would bring better balance? What would somebody else say about the team if this was the picture you were presenting them? Now, it doesn't really matter what questions you're asking. You'll ask different questions depending on what you're trying to surface. But what this does is it makes all of the unique talents and strengths visible in one place. And instead of looking at them as individual strengths, it's about how they all work together. What I love most about this activity is at the end of the day, I invite the team to take their picture cards away and create that team collage back in the office. It becomes a visual reminder of the activity and something they can refer to as they're going through their day-to-day work. Activity 3 is called the Appreciation Circle, and this is one of my most favourite activities ever. I sometimes use this activity at the end of a workshop as a way for people to show gratitude or appreciation for the way that others have shown up during the day. So if you've used the How We Show Up activity at the beginning, this is a way of recognizing that at the end. I also use this activity with teams where I recognize showing a bit of appreciation and gratitude towards each other might go a long way towards building a healthier culture. So how this works is I lay the pictures out on the floor and I invite people to stand in a circle. Then I invite them to turn to their left or their right, doesn't really matter, as long as they're all turning in the same direction. And I invite them to focus on the person in front of them. I give them about a minute to think about how that person has shown up for the day, or if it's a team that works together often, how that person shows up at work. I invite them to think about what they value about that person, what they appreciate about that person, and the really cool strengths and characteristics that they would like to call out and put a spotlight on. Then I invite them to turn back into the circle, pick up a picture card or choose a picture card, to represent what that person means to them. They choose the card, they cross the circle and find themselves a different place to stand. Once everyone has got their picture card and they're standing in a different part of the circle, I kickstart the conversation by sharing a card that I have chosen for someone in the team. Now, it's usually the person that I've had the most to do with in planning the workshop, or perhaps it's someone in the team who I think needs some extra special encouragement. So let's say I've picked this picture card and it's a picture of some cobblestone, and I might say something like, I've chosen this card for Kath, who happens to be one of our videographers today. And I've chosen this card because I really like the way that she is particularly ordered. She pays attention to detail. I've worked with her many, many times over the years, and she's always got a plan and she knows exactly how things are going to be laid out. And so I call that out in Kath and tell her how much I appreciate that in her. And then I cross the circle and I gift Kath that picture card. Usually at that point there's tears and hugs, and suddenly you can feel the connection in the room lift. Kath then shares the picture that she shared and the person that she's chosen it for and what it represents. She crosses the circle, gifts it to them, and so on and so forth. Over the course of 10 or 12 minutes, everyone has had a chance to call out and appreciate wonderful things in other people. It's a beautiful way to end a workshop, and people leave feeling really glad they came. Of course, if you want to run any of these activities, you're going to need some picture cards. So you can head on over to my website and download those picture cards absolutely free. The link is in the description below. Go check it out.